Welcome to Silent Betrayals. Please like this video and subscribe to Relation Tales. We are grateful for every one of you. Let us know where in the world you're tuning in from. We'd love to hear from you in the comments. Let's begin. The porch light was off when I pulled into the driveway. My heart pounded in my chest, a mix of exhaustion and rising frustration tightening my muscles. This had become routine. Emma had been distant for months. Nights out with friends, countless excuses, and a wall of secrecy that kept me on edge. I stepped into the house. The silence greeted me like an old enemy. The faint scent of her favorite perfume lingered in the air, but she was nowhere to be found. A half-empty coffee mug sat abandoned on the kitchen counter, lipstick smudged on the rim. "Emma?" My voice echoed through the empty rooms, but there was no reply. I made my way to the living room, where the soft glow of her phone screen lit up the couch. I froze. A text notification flashed across the screen. "Can't wait to see you again tonight." It was incredible. My breath caught, and my hands tightened into fists as a rush of emotions flooded me. Anger, betrayal, but most of all, a cold, determined resolve. This wasn't the first sign. Over the past year, I had sensed her growing detachment, the widening gap between us. Each time I tried to bridge it, she brushed me off, saying it was just work stress or a need for space. But this was undeniable. I picked up her phone, scrolling through the messages, each word stabbing deeper into my chest. Chris was his name. The conversations were flirtatious, filled with hidden meanings, a clear sign of betrayal. The final message was the worst. "See you at the Golden Vine tonight. Can't wait to hold you again." My vision blurred as the weight of the truth sank in. She wasn't out with friends. She was with him. I sat down, my mind racing. For years, I had been the steady one in her life, the one who supported her dreams and stood by her through every storm. And now, she had thrown it all away. But I wasn't going to let her destroy me. Not without consequences. A plan began to form. I wasn't just going to walk away. If she wanted to gamble with our life, she would learn the hard way that some losses can't be undone. I reached for the stack of papers I had been preparing for months. The divorce documents were at the top. Beneath them was a detailed ledger of every financial safeguard I had set in place, ensuring that if this day ever came, I wouldn't be the one left in ruins. This was no longer about saving our marriage. It was about saving myself and ensuring she understood exactly what she had lost. She would understand exactly what she had lost. I spent the rest of the night in a blur of action, driven by adrenaline and a cold, simmering anger. I couldn't allow emotions to cloud my judgment. Everything had to be meticulous, calculated, and irreversible. If she had decided I wasn't worth her loyalty, then she would face the consequences of that decision. The first step was simple. I left the divorce papers on the kitchen counter, next to a velvet box containing her engagement ring. Beneath them, I placed a handwritten letter. Every word was deliberate, reflecting the pain of my realization, but also making it clear that I was no longer willing to be a victim of her deceit. "Emma, for years I've loved you more than words can describe. I believed in you, stood by you, and hoped that you'd choose us over fleeting distractions. But love isn't enough without respect and commitment, and your actions have shown me where your priorities truly lie. I won't beg you to change. If you still want a life with me, you'll know where to find me. I'll be waiting at the Pinewood Suites, room 304, until 5 p.m. this Friday. If you don't show, I'll know we're done. The papers are final. Think carefully before you make your choice." After placing the note where she couldn't miss it, I took the next steps to secure my future. The financial safeguards I had put in place over the past few months were now activated. Joint accounts were closed, assets moved into untouchable accounts, and I canceled every shared subscription and payment tied to my name. If she wanted freedom, I would give it to her, but not at my expense. By morning, I had checked into the Pinewood Suites. The weight of my actions settled over me. Despite everything, a part of me still hoped she would come. I had left her the choice to meet me halfway, even after her betrayal. But as the hours passed, my hopes slowly dimmed. Friday arrived, and the clock in my hotel room seemed to move slower with each passing second. At 4:30 p.m., I sat quietly waiting. I sat by the window, staring at the street below. Was she on her way? Did she even care enough to try? By 5:30 p.m., it was clear she wasn't coming. I stood up, every emotion rising to the surface: anger, sadness, and finally, resolve. She had made her decision. Now, it was time for me to move on without her. I left the hotel and returned to our now empty house. The silence was deafening, but it didn't bother me. I wasn't staying here. The realtor was already lined up, and the house would be listed within days. When Emma finally came home that evening, the reality of her choices hit her. She called my name, her voice filled with irritation and confusion. Then she saw the letter, the papers, and the empty spaces where my belongings had once been. I watched from my car, parked down the street, waiting to see her reaction. The light in the kitchen flicked on, and I imagined her reading my words, the truth sinking in. She crumpled the letter in her hand, her shoulders tense with either anger or disbelief. I couldn't tell which. I drove away, leaving her to face the silence of the life she had chosen. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. The divorce proceedings began immediately, and my lawyer, Sarah, was relentless. Every safeguard I had put in place was airtight, leaving Emma with little to contest. During our first court appearance, she tried to paint herself as a victim, claiming she was overwhelmed and needed an escape from our routine life. But Sarah dismantled her arguments with precision, presenting evidence of her infidelity and financial irresponsibility. Hotel receipts, messages from her phone, and even witness accounts painted an undeniable picture of her betrayal. Emma's attorney tried to argue against the admissibility of some of the evidence, but it was no use. I saw the realization dawn on her face as the judge listened to Sarah's arguments. For the first time, she looked at me with something other than defiance. Was it regret? Guilt? It didn't matter. As the legal battles unfolded, I began to rebuild my life. I moved into a new apartment closer to the city, focusing on my career and reconnecting with friends I had neglected during my marriage. Every step forward felt like shedding a layer of pain, leaving me lighter and stronger. Meanwhile, Emma's life seemed to spiral. Mutual friends distanced themselves from her, and whispers about her choices followed her everywhere. She tried to maintain appearances at her job, but the cracks were visible. One evening, months after the divorce was finalized, I ran into her at a coffee shop. She looked different. The confident, vibrant woman I had once loved now seemed weary, her eyes carrying a weight I couldn't ignore. "Luke," she said softly, her voice lacking its usual spark. I nodded, keeping my response short. "Emma," she hesitated, as if searching for the right words. I wanted to say I'm sorry for everything. I studied her for a moment, considering her apology. Part of me wanted to lash out, to remind her of everything she had done. But another part, the part that had finally moved on, simply nodded. "I hope you find what you're looking for," I said, my voice steady, as I walked away. As I left, I felt an overwhelming sense of closure. She had made her choices, and I had made mine. The days turned into weeks, and life began to feel normal again. Though the wounds of betrayal had left permanent scars, I was healing. I channeled my energy into my work, throwing myself into long hours and ambitious projects. The distraction was welcome, but it wasn't just about staying busy. It was about building a new life for myself. Yet, even as I moved forward, there were moments when the memories crept back in. Quiet evenings would sometimes bring flashes of Emma's laughter, the warmth we'd once shared, and the promises we'd made. It was like staring at a house she used to call home, now reduced to rubble. But I had to remind myself, Emma wasn't the woman I thought I knew. The betrayal wasn't a mistake or a lapse in judgment. It was a choice she made repeatedly. Each decision to lie, To prioritize her selfish desires over our marriage was another nail in the coffin of our relationship. One afternoon, while sorting through some old boxes, I stumbled upon a collection of photos from our early years together. A younger version of myself stared back, smiling beside Emma as we stood on the edge of a cliff during a road trip. I remember the day vividly. The way she teased me about my fear of heights, the way her laughter had echoed through the canyon. It hit me then, how much I had romanticized those memories, how blind I had been. I had been blind to the cracks that had existed even then. Emma had always been restless, chasing thrills and validation in ways that left me struggling to keep up. I thought I could be her anchor, but she had been looking for a different kind of escape. As I placed the photos back into the box, I felt something shift within me, a release. Those moments were no longer chains holding me back. They were simply echoes of a past life, a life that no longer defined who I was. Months later, I heard through mutual friends that Emma was struggling. She had moved into a small apartment in the city and was rumored to be having trouble at work. Her once vibrant social life had dwindled, and she seemed lost. A part of me wanted to feel vindicated, to revel in the fact that her choices had led to this. But instead, I felt something unexpected, pity. She had thrown away everything we had built together, only to find herself more alone than ever. One day, I received an email from her. The subject line was simple, "I'm sorry." I debated whether to open it. Did I want to give her the satisfaction of knowing I had read her words? But curiosity won out, and I clicked. "Luke, I know I have no right to ask for your forgiveness, but I need you to know how sorry I am. I've spent the last few months replaying everything in my head, and I can't believe how blind I was to what I had. You were always there for me, always patient, always loving, and I threw it all away. I can't undo the damage I've caused, but I want you to know that I see it now. I see how much I hurt you, and I hate myself for it. I hope you're finding happiness, even if it's without me. You deserve it more than anyone I've ever known. Emma." I read the message twice, my emotions a mix of anger, sadness, and closure. She was right. She didn't deserve forgiveness, but in that moment, I realized I no longer needed to carry the weight of her betrayal. I didn't reply. There was nothing more to say. Over time, the pain of Emma's actions faded into the background. I began to build a new version of myself, one that was stronger and more self-assured. Friends often commented on how much happier I seemed, and for the first time in years, I felt free. I met new people, explored new hobbies, and even started to entertain the idea of dating again. But this time, I wasn't looking to fill a void. I was looking for someone who truly valued partnership, honesty, and respect. One evening, as I walked through the park near my new apartment, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The sun was setting, casting golden hues across the sky, and the laughter of children filled the air. I thought of Emma, not with anger or regret, but with gratitude. Her betrayal had been a painful lesson, but it had also been a turning point, a chance for me to rebuild my life on my terms. For the first time, I realized that I wasn't just moving on. I was moving up. As the months turned into a year, my life had undergone a quiet transformation. I had reclaimed my happiness, but it wasn't the flashy, surface-level joy Emma had always chased. It was a deeper, more grounded contentment. My career was thriving, and I had surrounded myself with people who respected and valued me for who I was. But just when I thought I had put it all behind me, a ripple from the past returned to test my resolve. It started with a message from an unknown number. "Luke, I need to talk to you. It's important." The number was unfamiliar, but I knew instantly who it was, Emma. I stared at the message, the cursor blinking in the text field where I could reply. My mind raced with possibilities. What could she possibly want now? The divorce had been finalized, the assets divided, and the dust had long settled. Against my better judgment, I typed back, "What do you need?" Her response was almost immediate. "Can we meet just once? I need to explain something." My first instinct was to delete the message and move on, but a nagging curiosity lingered. After everything she had done, I couldn't imagine what more she could have to say. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet her. We met at a small cafe on the outskirts of the city, a neutral ground neither of us had frequented before. When I arrived, Emma was already there, sitting at a table by the window. She looked different. The confidence that had once defined her seemed diminished, replaced by a weariness that etched lines into her face. "Luke," she said softly when I approached, her voice carrying none of the bravado I remembered. I nodded, taking the seat across from her. "You said you needed to talk," I said, my voice calm. She hesitated, her hands fidgeting with the coffee cup in front of her. For a moment, I thought she might back out, but then she took a deep breath. "I've made a mess of everything," she began, her voice trembling. "I don't expect you to forgive me, but there's something you don't know, and I need to tell you." Her words caught me off guard. After all this time, what could possibly still be left unsaid? "Go on," I said, keeping my tone neutral. Emma swallowed hard, her eyes filling with unshed tears. "I thought I could handle everything on my own. I thought I didn't need anyone, not you, not anyone. But I was wrong. And now, I'm facing the consequences of my choices." Her voice cracked, and she looked away, struggling to continue. "Emma," I said, my patience wearing thin, "if you want me to listen, you need to get to the point." She flinched but nodded. "Chris," she whispered, "the man I cheated with, he wasn't who I thought he was. He used me, manipulated me, and left me when I was at my lowest. And now he's trying to ruin what little I have left. He's threatening to tell my boss about our affair, to send messages and photos that would destroy my career. I thought maybe you could help me." Her words hung in the air, a strange mix of desperation and misplaced hope. I leaned back in my chair, letting her request settle. The audacity of it was almost laughable. After everything she had done, after shattering our marriage, betraying my trust, and choosing her selfish desires over our life together, she wanted me to save her from the fallout of her own actions. "Emma," I began, my voice steady,